Hello and welcome to jasonnewland.com. My name is Jason Newland. Please only listen when you can safely close your eyes. This is Let Me Bore You to Sleep, and I just realised my glasses are smeary. But in order for me to go and get my wet wipes for my glasses, I'm going to have to get out of this tangle of microphones and equipment. As well as recording this for my podcast that's available on my podcast. It's also available on YouTube as a video. I will post it onto Instagram, X and TikTok. I'm also recording live or streaming live on TikTok as well. So hi to everyone that's on TikTok viewing me doing my podcast. So today is Monday's Boring Objects. So what I do is I try and think of a subject. It's not necessarily boring to me, but it's an object or a subject. It could be anything. I've talked about so many different things over the years, and that's all it is. And I do this kind of regularly. I'm not sure what time it is. I don't know. Where's the time? Oh, it's 7 minutes past 5. So I should be on here for the next probably hour or so. But I'm not going to be able to say too much as far as having a conversation, and I'm not going to be doing requests like saying a weird sentence or anything like that. I'm just going to do the recording. And also I'd like to say thank you to those that have on TikTok that have followed me and that have been watching my videos, because that's cool. I'm getting quite a few views of my videos. But also to let you know that some of my videos are longer than an hour, which means if you want to see the whole hour version or the version that's maybe an hour and a half, you need to go to YouTube to watch the video or listen on the podcast. Because I can only do up to an hour, 58, 59 minutes for the TikTok and X and Instagram. And relax. So I want to start off, and I'm thinking of starting off every recording by reminding everybody that's listening or watching that it's okay to ask for help. That we all need to ask for help sometimes. And just want to remind people of that. So, what can I talk about today? I did a recording Saturday. Didn't do a recording Sunday. I watched the boxing Saturday night. And there's a world title fight early hours Sunday morning, but it wasn't on TV. Bizu says talk about the Beatles. I can talk about the Beatles if you want. I don't. The Beatles split before I was even born, but I can talk about them. Okay. So Bizu says talk about the Beatles. I'm going to talk about the Beatles. Any other requests? Do you think Paul's cute? Right, okay. I thought that was a serious thing for a second then. So, or should we do talk about Epstein? And no. Is that Einstein, you mean? No. thinking I'd get some kind of serious thing is, I don't want serious, just like a genuine request. I mean, it was Elvis's birthday recently, so I have to ignore some of the things people are writing, right or left. My uncle is Jimmy. Nope, I'm not going to read that one out. That sounds like Uncle Sebastian would have done that one. Or was it Uncle Hubert? Oh dear. So, I can talk about the Beatles. I like the Beatles. But I grew up, I was born in 1970. Which, the last century. And I think the Beatles split up in 1969, so they'd already finished. My first real kind of knowledge about the Beatles was my dad was a big Beatles fan because he grew up in the 60s. So that was kind of his 20s, was in the 60s. So he was a big fan of the Beatles, and when we used to travel to Wales or go on holiday, he would have these tapes. It was like, they were called 6-track tapes. Now these big old things are like almost like the old style computer game consoles games, you know, big old things that just used to go in, not like normal tapes. He had loads of those from the 60s and 70s, and they sounded really good. They were really good quality sound. And we had a games room upstairs in my house, because when we moved into this big house, there was me, my two brothers, and my little brother who'd just been born. So when we moved in about 1979 into a bigger house, it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms. My little brother, I had 1 bedroom. There was a spare bedroom for my stepmum's mum, or whoever like visited. My little brother had the box room. My other brother had the room ahead of the stairs, upstairs, because it's 3 floors. My oldest brother had the next room, and then the big room on the right at the front on the top was like our playroom. So we had a snooker table, pool table, like used to convert, into a tennis table. And then someone just asked me, where's my hair at? Yeah, I shaved it, but apparently TikTok didn't like me shaving my head for some reason. But yeah, I shaved it. I was doing it live, and then I don't know if it was the sound of the buzzing or whatever, I don't know. And then, so my dad had his recording stuff up there, or his 6-track player, and we used to play songs from the 50s and the 60s. And we could also listen to stuff from the 70s and 80s, on the radio and that. So I kind of got to know some of the older songs, the stuff from the 50s, like Rubber Ball, I'll come back to you, Rubber Ball, bouncing back to you, which I think was kind of very Buddy Holly-esque. And I see. Oh yeah, I think there was some seating in the like where the window was. I used to go up there, but I preferred to go up there when there was no one up there. Like go up with my friend, because we could play pool or table tennis, and it was kind of more equal. Because I could never beat my brothers. They always beat me, always. Like, didn't give me a chance because they were a lot older. So I didn't really get a chance to be any good. But then I'd have a friend come round, and it used to be alright. It used to be quite nice. There was a point for me saying this, yeah, because then we used to travel to Wales for our holidays. We used to go tenting, and it was a long journey. Like 6 hours or longer. And my dad would be playing so many songs from the 60s and 70s, like rock music, the Beatles. We'd have a couple of hours worth of Beatles songs. And I kind of got used to the Beatles, hearing it. And then when John Lennon passed away, that was when there was a lot of like John Lennon songs on the radio, got to number one again, and I didn't really catch like Imagine and Woman the first time round, but I had heard a lot of the Beatles songs, and so I knew kind of who he was. Well, I knew his voice anyway. But I think as I got older, I realised how big that they were. Once I was kind of a bit more socially conscious, maybe reading the newspapers, watching the news. I was a big fan of Paul McCartney's songs, especially the Frog song. Boom, 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 dee dee dee, boom, 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 dee dee dee, boom, 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 boom. Underrated, that one. I think it's still got to number one. Pipes of Peace. I'm pretty sure 1979 it was Muller King Tyre was the number one for about 17 years. Really like Muller King Tyre, oh do 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 do. So if anyone wants to know what my name is, it's in my profile. That is my actual real name, Jason Newland. I don't use a false name or anything like that. I just can't think of a false one, really. I reckon Muller King Tyre is the only song that I've ever liked that had bagpipes in them. I'm not against bagpipes, I just don't find them pleasing to my ear. It's very kind of, really kind of, it's a particular sound. But on Muller King Tyre, it just, yeah, I don't know why, but it really, maybe that's the genius of Paul McCartney. He's able to fit it all together. So I liked a lot of Paul McCartney songs in the early 80s, like Say, Say, Say with Michael Jackson, Band on the Run, another love song, Band on a Run, because he was with EA. He created Wings as well, didn't he, with his wife Linda and some other people. It was a bit like Phil Collins. Like Phil Collins would do his own songs, and then he'd have his, with UB40 or whatever they're called. So, what was the one that Phil Collins was with? Wow, the band. I forget. It's just terrible, isn't it? So I can remember the people, like Peter Gabriel was in that band as well. And then Phil Collins took over and he was the drummer. Studio. So yeah, Dire Straits, one of them. So I want to know how old I am. I'm 103. I'm 55, and you're right, I am too old to be on here. I'm too old. I shouldn't be doing anything at my age, should I? I should be sitting, drinking me cocoa, looking out the window. I wonder what's going on out there. Oh. I'll be honest. Sometimes I used to think, I wonder what I'll be doing if I get to be 55, if I get to be in my 50s. What will I be doing with my life? And I couldn't have guessed this. Genuinely could not have guessed this. It's a very, very different from what I expected. I'm not sure what I expected. I mean, when I was very young, I thought, well, if I live to be that old, perhaps I'll have a family, I'll have a wife, or two, or three, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen during that period, but I don't mean at the same time, because that's illegal. As long as you don't tell anyone. So maybe I'll have a wife, or just be in a long-term relationship, have kids maybe. And by now, I could be a grandfather. I mean, if everyone had kids really early, I suppose I could be a great-grandfather, but that means everyone has to kind of get together at 16 and have a kid, which is the age in this country. But, yeah, I could be a grandfather. It's weird. I know people used to hear people say, oh, I don't feel my age. I don't feel old. But I think it's different. I mean, I don't have the energy I used to have. I don't have the flexibility physically I used to have. I've changed. I'm not the same person I was 25 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. And a lot of that might just be due to life generally, you know, life experiences. It's hard to really kind of figure out what's been the thing. I mean, my dad's a lot different now to how he used to be when he was in his 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. He's still in his 70s. So, yeah, age is a weird thing. The only thing I do get concerned about sometimes is have I left it too late to have any kind of relationship? And I don't know the answer to that, because I've had many opportunities over the years. Hard to believe, but it's true. Not for a while, but I have had, a few opportunities to possibly be with someone that really likes me. And I've either messed up or just haven't taken the cues that were given to me, the signals, the hints. Some of them have been so obvious I won't even tell you, but yeah. So I don't know, maybe I've left it too late. Who knows? I learned something quite big last year when I might not go all sort of serious, but I had a friend and he he left the planet, as it were. And I realised that, when people say life is short, life is precious, make the most of it, enjoy your time. And sometimes it does seem just like, oh yeah, it's just another one of those platitudes, blah blah blah. Yeah, life is precious. But yeah, it is actually. And I don't think I really appreciated that for a long time. However, when I started looking at, like at the end of last year, I was considering stopping doing all this and like trying to figure out what's the point and what have I, for me, what do I want to do with my life? If I'm going to do something that I enjoy, that is meaningful to me. And after quite a bit of consideration and thinking, I realised that this is what is meaningful to me. Making recordings that help people to relax, help people to sleep, help people to feel calmer. And that's a useful thing for me to be doing with my time. That's an important way for me to spend my life, I think. It's not for everyone, but for me, yeah. So I'm kind of being quite introspective. Is that the right word? What's retrospective, introspective? I've been thinking about things. And although I'm not always necessarily hugely motivated to do anything, thank you, Emily. I'm trying to acknowledge people. Say hi to Selma as well. So I don't want to ignore TikTok because I'm live, but at the same time I'm recording the video for YouTube and the podcast for Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that stuff. So I'm kind of doing 3 things at the same time. And as you know, multitasking might not be my thing, or you might not know, but multitasking is not great. So I'm cool, thank you. So I guess that's why I've tried to increase my production. I started to do more stuff this year, if you might have noticed. I mean, we're not even 2 weeks into the new year, and I've released... Tomorrow I'll have done 10 days in a row of the short relaxation hypnosis sessions. I've pretty much made a Let Me Bore You to Sleep podcast video as well. Pretty much every day. I didn't do one yesterday, so I might have missed a day or two, but nearly every day I've done some other stuff. So I'm being proactive, trying to focus on... So I know I can't help everyone, obviously, and not everything I do is going to be to everyone's taste. But I got a really lovely message earlier from somebody that listens to my podcast, that they contacted me via TikTok on their son's account because she doesn't have social media, and she told me that she'd had a bereavement and my recordings were helpful for her to during this period. And getting a message like that is, to me, very powerful. And it gives what I do more meaning. makes more sense to me to continue to do what I'm doing. And I know I'm being a little bit serious. I normally like to muck around if I can. And don't worry, I'll start making some weird noises at some point. Oh, itchy leg. But getting something like that personal, getting a personal message, and I won't tell you what she said because it is, it's personal, but if she did so I could read it out if I want, but I can't actually access it while I'm doing this. But I could feel for her because I'd had a kind of similar, not similar, but a kind of a situation with my friend a couple of years ago, and yeah. So that's it. So I do appreciate getting messages, genuine messages of like just saying if what I'm doing is useful. That's all I want it to be. I want to be. I remember years ago when I first moved in here, I had my my psychologist, my therapist was coming here, and she was talking to me, and she said, I said, I feel like I should be doing more for the community, because I'm not working. I feel like I should be contributing to the community, to the local community of my town. And she pointed out that, okay, maybe I'm not contributing to the local community directly, and maybe I'm not contributing to the town, the local area, but I'm contributing to people around the world, in different countries. Because, this was 11 years ago. No, this was about 8 years ago, actually. 9 years ago. And I've been doing this thing for 20 years. So it's like, okay, I hadn't really thought of it like that. Reaching, it's not like it's a huge audience, but it's a spread out audience. And I think, because like every country pretty much in the world is listening to me at some point, people in those countries. If only I could crack the Chinese market. So many people in China. I mean, what I might do, and I reckon the way podcasts are going, it won't be long, and I reckon the next year or two, that people will just be able to press a button and they'll be able to hear exactly the same podcast or YouTube video overdubbed with their own language in the same voice as what I've got, and lip synced, so my lips would change to suit the way I'm talking. I don't think we're far away from that. I mean, it can be done, but it costs money to do that stuff. I reckon it will be standard in a couple of years, which means more people in other countries will be able to be annoyed by me. Maybe, I don't know. How can I annoy more people? So I realise some of you might think, some people might be watching a video for the first time. Some people might be streaming on TikTok for the first time, or listening on my podcast for the very first time and thinking, what is he going on about? And I can't say really, I'm not always sure, but I am supposed to be talking about the Beatles. The Beatles. What's my favourite song? I'd tell you my favourite album is Sgt. Pepper. I went through this period, or is it Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band? I went through this period in 1989, and I was staying in this person's flat. My job was looking after their kid, But the only job I had was to be there at night, because they both had night jobs. They worked overnight. So my only job really was to be there overnight, and then take her to school. So they would stay up, the mother would stay up, get her ready for school, breakfast and everything, and then they would go to bed, and I would take her to school, and then she would pick her up from school herself. So that was my only job. So she was in bed before they left, because they'd leave at like 9:30, and she was only like 6 or something. So she was in bed probably 7 or 8 in the evening, and then I would be there sleeping on the floor on sofa cushions, and I had no money. And part of the deal was they would feed me, and they would give me some money to spend, some spending money to do the job. And they didn't give me any money, but they did let me eat, but they didn't buy much food. So in the end, I got a little part-time job in the morning, which they seemed to be annoyed with. Even though it finished at 8:30, so it's 6:30 to 8:30. Yeah, but you need to be ready to take her to school. I said, I am. Yeah, but what if you're late? I said, well, I can't really be late, because the supermarket is directly opposite the flat you're living in. It takes me less than a minute to get there. 1 minute. And to get to school was round the corner, so it's like 5 minutes, I'd say. A 5-minute walk to the school. I mean, everything was very close to each other there. And I mean, I got that part-time job. It's the same part-time job I had in 1987, because I used to work above a chip work. I used to live above a chip shop and work in a chip shop. And the money was ridiculously bad, because they put me on the YTS scheme. I agreed to it, so I can't really moan, but it was the YTS scheme when I was a kid was kind of like an apprenticeship, like a City and Guilds apprenticeship thing that they had previously. And then, but with the apprenticeship, you would not have been able to get an apprenticeship. Like when my dad was a kid, or when he left school rather, he got an apprenticeship as an electrician. My uncle's got apprenticeships in the trade as well. So one got an apprenticeship as a carpenter, the other one got an apprenticeship as a plumber. So they worked with a plumber or a carpenter. My dad was with an electrician. And they did 3 years or 4, I don't know how many years it was, 3 years or 4 years. And at the end of it, they were qualified. They had to go to college and do exams and stuff, but they were qualified as in that trade. And they didn't get paid much. But at the end of it, they had something really tangible. And my dad he earned a living his whole life, because he had a trade, and he always had work. He never went without work, ever. The only time he didn't work is when he was ill. I mean, he'd always in hospital or something like that. So, because he was self-employed most of his life. So that was what the YTS was actually replacing. But the YTS, people were misusing it. The companies were misusing it. Like, so someone that worked in a little shop or owned a little shop on the corner would get someone in, instead of paying them £60 a week, which was £70, £80 a week, it'd give them £27 a week. And I don't think they'd pay towards that. I'm not sure. I don't even have to pay that much. I think it was government funded. So they definitely took advantage of the situation. Can't really blame them, to be honest. But Oh yeah, so what I did, I got a job in a supermarket which is just up the road, cleaning in the morning 6:30 till 8:30, and I'd start working at 9. Or it might have been 6 till 8, and I start working at 9, something like that. And my boss insisted that I leave that job because I was too tired. Yeah, I was probably earning half the amount of money as well, probably more. I was probably getting, what would I be getting? 1, 2. I was probably getting like maybe £17 a week from that job. Got to be at least £1 an hour, maybe more. So it was a big boost to my wages, but oh well, it was tiring. I remember I used to get home, have some cornflakes with some milk on and sugar, and drink a can of Coke at the same time whilst watching breakfast telly, which could explain why my blood sugar level is so high these days. But I guess I was trying to give myself a boost to stay awake, because not only that, I'd be working till 10 at night in the chip shop. I go home, I lived upstairs. I didn't want to go straight to bed. And I was also young, so I didn't have the need to sleep all the time. I wasn't tired. I needed to sleep, but my issue was getting out of bed in the morning, getting up. Going to sleep, I wasn't really bothered about it. Getting up was like, oh. And I used to stay up for hours working out business plans, how I could make some money, how I could change my life, and didn't really I enjoyed doing it, but I never made any money. It was just I liked the creative part of it, I guess. I'm just trying to think, going back to the Beatles, because that was supposed to be what I was talking about. Because the Beatles kind of gone, they were gone, and it was just the remaining Beatles, like Ringo Starr, George Harrison and Paul McCartney, who were making songs or making albums. Now, Ringo Starr, I don't remember him making any songs. He might have done, but he still remained famous, and he was in some movies as well. And of course he took on the role as Thomas the Tank Engine's voice. I don't know if that was in the 80s or 90s, but did that for a long time, I think. George Harrison, he did a few famous songs in the 70s, like Oh My Lord, Oh Sweet Lord, I only want to hold you, I only want to kiss you. Or maybe that was the one, I don't know, but there was one in the 80s. He did a song that got into the top 10 in the 80s, and I loved it so much. And there was another song on that album called When We Were Fab, because they used to be called the Fab Four in the 60s. So I actually bought the album. I didn't not like it, but I didn't love it. But I liked that. Was it My Lord? Maybe that was the song. I'm sure that it was a different one to that. Only want to love you, only want to kiss you, only want to hold you, my sweet Lord. Which is, it's completely different to the actual song. Yeah. So Paul McCartney. To be honest, wow. I don't think the only Beatles album I've ever purchased, ever, maybe Sgt. Pepper, but I did buy the anthology number 3. This was on tape, so this was I used to listen to them in 1996 or 1996, 97, and I used to listen to, like, alternate between the anthology number 3, the Beatles anthology, and Oasis, that album. What's the Story, Morning Glory. And people now putting numbers on my my TikTok. So I don't know what that's all about. Is it I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Did I buy? I bought one George Harrison song, album. I never bought, at least I don't remember ever buying a Paul McCartney album, ever. And I don't think, I definitely didn't buy a Ringo Starr album, if he made any. I think he might have done. I'm not even sure if I ever bought a John Lennon album either. If I had done, it would have been like afterwards, after he'd gone, because I was only, I think it was 1980, it was 81. I have a memory of it. My memory is that I was in high school and it was 1981 and everyone was like telling each other, and it was during gym class and we were just getting changed after gym. And it was the big story of the day, really. And everyone was, because I think everyone my age would have grown up knowing who the Beatles were, and probably all of our parents would have been like fans of them, or maybe like one of the parents would have been a fan, because some people, they went sort of Rolling Stones are over the Beatles, but I don't think you got to choose between the two, and it's completely different bands, aren't they? Never really into the Rolling Stones. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. This looks AI, said videos for you. Well, the way you can tell that it's not AI, the face. Why would someone do an AI that looks like me? That would just make no sense. I'd look a lot different. If I was going to put an AI together, it would be, it wouldn't be this. That would be, unless I was going to like, yes, we're going to create an old man with a pink face. You were joking, thanks. But you see what I mean, though? It's like, if I would definitely I'd be handsome. I guess I'd have hair, a lot of it, and a nice tiny little nose. If I had a beard, it would be dark. Probably have smaller ears. You know what I mean? I would definitely wouldn't be looking like this. God, man. That's the thing. That's why I could never have. Do you know when some people have like a portrait done and then they have a picture on their wall of themselves? No. I mean, sometimes, I forget what I look like. I genuinely forget how old I am. And I walk in the bathroom and there's a mirror right to the left of me. And sometimes I make myself jump. It's like, what's this old man doing? Oh, it's me. And this isn't even like as a joke. I mean, I remember once I was looking out the window. I think we was on holiday. This was in Cornwall, and we was on the ground floor, so I didn't really know the area. I heard something in the garden, and it was a friend of mine invited me to go on holiday, and she'd rented the house. I looked out there and saw this face in the window, like really scared me until I realised it was my own reflection. I mean, that's why if I did get together with with a lady, she'd have to be physically healthy, because if she had any kind of medical complaints, imagine waking up and seeing me looking at her. It might you know what I mean? It might be shocking. It did happen once, actually. There was this, it was a medical emergency, and it was just up the road. And the ambulance was there, but their equipment failed them, and they had to do the electric shock thing to get the pulse back. And their equipment, and around the corner, in the old days, right, we used to have phone boxes with phones in them. Now we have phone boxes with resuscitators, I forget what the correct name is now, in them. And I heard one of the paramedics saying to one of the other paramedics, you need to go around and you need to phone in to get the code and go around and, get it and bring it back. And then she looked over at me and said, "Oh no, it's fine, you come over here." So what she does, she had me look at him, this bloke, and it shocked him back to life, my face. So yeah, so it's good, it's a power, it's a superpower. That wasn't a real story, by the way. I think what it was, I was kind of trying to I don't do myself any favours by pointing out how I've never been a fan of how I looked, but I didn't notice how I looked until I was probably a teenager. I didn't care. And then I started getting spots, and I thought, oh. And I became aware of my body in junior school, not of my face. And I only became aware of my voice, like my accent, in probably the last year or two of school, because someone asked me, why do you speak different to us? And I realised I didn't have like a Suffolk, because I was living in Suffolk, I didn't have a strong Suffolk accent. I probably had some twang and stuff, but I was born in North London, and then I lived there for a couple of years. Then I lived in Newcastle, pick up that accent for a few years. Then I moved to Southend, Essex, and then I moved to Suffolk. But then I was going home to my dad, and my dad has North London accent. My uncles and aunts and my nan all had North or London accents, And my stepmum, she didn't really have a Suffolk accent. She was quite not well spoken. I don't mean that in a bad way, but she's not posh, but quite well. I don't know how to explain it. She just didn't have. In where I lived, there was two accents. There was proper Suffolk, like real kind of quite strong Suffolk accent, which is fine and it's very lovable. And people who speak normally. Oh dear. I'm getting some letters. Dear Jason. Okay, right. Okay, right, here we go. People are starting to send me stuff, which is weird. So what was I going to say? I got distracted from a really weird message, but maybe I should get myself a moderator. But I don't have enough people come into my onto my TikTok in order to really do moderation. Not really. I've had 868 likes, so that's nice since I've been on here today. I'm trying to think, I don't think I ever bought a Paul McCartney album. But then thinking about it, I wasn't much of a record buyer when it came to singles. I did sometimes, like in the early 80s. Perhaps I would have got like Adam and the Ants and maybe Blondie and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. Or maybe I'd have got tapes of their albums. I was really big into Shakin' Stevens. But I also loved Buddy Holly, the Monkees. So Buddy Holly and the Monkees were two of my favourite albums. And it's basically the greatest hits. And then I got the greatest hits of Madness, and that became one of my favourite albums. And this was in my early teens, like early to middle teens. No, I can't remember. So it's weird, isn't it? I never bought a John Lennon album. Never bought a Paul McCartney album, but I bought a George Harrison album. That seems a bit strange. I mean, there's nothing wrong with George Harrison. Just you'd think out of all of them, John Lennon or Paul McCartney would be the albums I would buy, and probably like Paul McCartney more because he was a superstar as a solo artist, wasn't he? In the 80s. Say, say, say what you want, but don't leave me, with Michael Jackson. And Ebony and Ivory. Ebony and Ivory. I like that song. I had no idea what it was about. I thought it was just a nice song. I thought, they're singing about someone called Ebony and Ivory. And they're just, why they're sitting next to sitting next to each other on a piano. Side by side on my piano. It's piano, isn't it? But piano. So I suppose it's okay. But I did like Stevie Wonder. I was a big fan of Stevie Wonder. I guess I grew up listening to him without knowing I was listening to him. Because there was a period of time when I was left in my, I would probably call it a crib. I don't know. Not a home. Like a, where babies sleep. Like a basket thing. Not a basket. Not a manger. Like a, that's got bars on it. Like a little prison cell. So I remember being in there, I mean, I might have been about 5 years old. I mean, I think it was just, I wouldn't have been 5 though, would I? But I remember hearing Elvis Presley on the radio. You were always on my mind, always on my mind. And another song, which I won't say the name of the person, but it was I love, you love me too, love, I love you, love me, love, which was a huge song. So we're talking early 70s. And yeah, I'll just be there on my own, looking at the clock. I don't know how long for, I can't remember. Definitely had time to think. That's the thing, I think we think that little kids don't think and they're just brain, like completely empty. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just non-ability to express how they're thinking, what they're thinking. It's just not in the same way as humans or adults. Humans. So I would have grown up listening to Stevie Wonder on the radio without knowing who he was. And then my first taste of Stevie Wonder in my memory would have been I Just Called to Say I Love You. No New Year's Day to celebrate. No chocolate covered candy bars to give away. No April rain. So I like that song, but it was number one for about 100 years, and it got a little bit too like, come on. It went on for a long time. And then the Ebony and Ivory, I don't rightly know which one was first. That also got to number one. So they were the first two songs that I remember. I don't remember hearing Lately and all the other stuff before, but I made up for it afterwards. The first time I really fell in love with Stevie Wonder was when he sung Overjoyed. I saw that, I think it was the last year of school. It was coming up to me leaving school, and it was a song called Overjoyed. It's like, overjoyed, I've been in my castle of love just for two. And I'm pretty sure he was sitting on a beach making a sandcastle, I think. And I just loved that song. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Right. And I'm not sure when I started buying Stevie Wonder albums. Probably wasn't until I moved into the flat, because before that I was sleeping on the floor, on a camper bed in my stepmom's mum's flat. So I didn't have anything. It was kind of, my clothes were in a bag, and I didn't really have any kind of proper living conditions for a while. But when I moved into the flat above the chip shop, I mean the conditions were alright. I mean, I had food and everything. It's just I didn't have my own room. That's what I mean. So I couldn't sort of chill out and listen to music and stuff like that. But when I got the flat above the chip shop, I started buying Stevie Wonder's albums, and I got the one with Overjoyed and Part-Time Lover. What was that? What the heck was that album called? It's weird. I remember all the others, I think. It might be called Overjoyed. So then I got Characters, which I think he released in 1987. And that was a brown cover. And I loved that. Overjoyed. Circle. In Squared Circle. That was the name of that album, In Squared Circle, which is one with Part-Time Lover, Overjoyed, and some others. I loved every single song on that album, and also on the Characters album. And during that period, I got even more into Michael Jackson. So I had all of Michael Jackson's albums, pretty much. Like, the ones I was listening to the most. I'm not sure if I had Thriller, because Thriller was overdone. I mean, for me, it seemed like every time I turned the radio on or turned the TV on, I went and saw Michael Jackson in concert. There he was, singing. And the Thriller, like those songs, the Top of the Pops, it was just like constant hymn. So I guess I got a little bit fed up with that album. And I didn't buy it because I didn't feel I needed to, because I felt like I knew all the songs off by heart. But then 1986 comes along. And Bad comes along, and that was my favourite album ever at the time, any time in the world, in time. That was it. I loved Michael Jackson's Bad. Every song on it, absolutely loved it. So then I went back in time. Well, I didn't, but I went and bought an album. These were on tape. I got Off the Wall, and I loved every song on that, and I never heard that album before. I mean, no doubt I'd heard some of the songs, but I just hadn't, like She's Out of My Life, stuff like that. I'd have heard those songs, but I hadn't really listened to like the whole thing. I'd probably seen She's Out of My Life on Top of the Pops as well in 1979 or whatever. And then with Michael Jackson, when I was about 18, I got an album which was a Michael Jackson mix of him when he was a kid, when he was playing in both the Jackson 5 and in his doing his own albums. And it was a mix of like all the songs and then just like mixed into another song. Can't find that anywhere. I've looked online, I've looked at his bibliography, for his record, discography, whatever you want to call it, not found that anywhere. It's like it didn't exist. And then in 1991, dun, 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 his next album came out, Dangerous. Oh my goodness. Loved that album. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it was so different from Bad, but I still loved every single song on there. Just completely loved the song. Every song. And that was quite an important period in my life as well. And I was in London. I'd moved back to London and I was doing some stuff in there. And I remember my memory, I don't know why, but I've got my memory connected with that period when I was working in the Elephant and Castle, working for a friend who owned a record shop inside the Elephant and Castle shopping centre. So he paid me to be outside in the freezing cold selling tapes. And so because he used to sell rare records, and he had all these tapes that he didn't know what to do with. So I think he was just helping me out, to be fair. So I had 2 tables full of tapes, and I was selling them, and I was playing music as well. And I was standing there all day, freezing cold. But it was one of the most fun times I've had. I really enjoyed it. It was very free, very freeing. Not being stuck inside, not being told what to do, because he was pretty chilled out. He was just a happy bloke. He was just enjoying his life. And then afterwards we'd go for a drink, or we'd go to a comedy club. He kind of, that's how I met him, at the comedy club. It's strange. It's but for some reason, when I think of Dangerous, the album, I think of that period of my life, that particular period, which didn't last long. It was only the end of the year, I think end of 91. And I was like, I was young myself back then. I was just like, I was having a good time. Didn't have no money, but I was, because I'd lost my other job. I got kicked off my other job, so this was just like a temporary thing. But it really did the trick. Got me through to Christmas. Yeah. Unless I started after Christmas, I don't know. It was a winter anyway, so I'm pretty sure it was 91, just December time. There might have even been some snow. And the bloke who owned the record shop, he was quite wealthy, because he was selling records for thousands of pounds, some of them, like really rare stuff. And he'd been doing it since he was a kid, and he was probably in his 30s at this point. He reminded me, and I think his hero was, what's his name? The Virgin Man. Not Peter Stringfellow. The Virgin Man. Because he started a shop, didn't he, selling records, and he started off, I think he started selling second-hand records, and then he kind of built up into a big, massive store around the country and around the world. Virgin, and then the airplanes, and then mobiles. It's not Pete. Why do you keep thinking Peter Stringfellow? I know he's got his own island. Someone says, I'd love to send you a rose, but I'm currently using it. That's cool. Thank you. Thanks for the thought. So, the next Michael Jackson album was History, and that was a double album, and that was released in 1995. And to start with, I thought, it's just a bunch of the old songs, because there's the first album is it 2 albums, or is it just 2 sides? I think it's double album. So the first one album is just a lot of his greatest hits from the past. It won't be from the future, will it? From the past, and including songs from Thriller, Off the Wall, and Bad. And I think at the time I thought, what have I just paid for? I don't want to listen to them. I can listen to them anyway. But then what I thought is, okay, I'll skip those and I'll just go to the other album. Let's listen to, because it's got new stuff on there. Again, I loved every single song. Every song instantly. Like, it wasn't kind of... There's been some songs that I've watched that I've listened to, or some albums that I just had to kind of... I had to build up to liking them in a weird way. There's been a few songs like that I just didn't like at the beginning, but ended up loving. Yeah, there's been a few like that. I think the one is Drunken in Love with Beyonce. The first time I heard that song, I thought, what on earth did my ears just endure? Which seems cruel, you know, because bearing in mind she is, how amazing she is. But I just didn't get that song. It was so off kilter, so different from anything I'd heard her do. Not that I'm a massive, huge fan as far as never bought her albums. But after hearing it a few times, it's become one of my favourite songs that she's done. It's such a good song. I loved it. And also, I remember when Rihanna and Drake released a song called Work, 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 or just Work, one of them. And the newspaper released, it was talking about it, Rihanna's new song, Here Are the Lyrics. This is before she'd even released it, or before anyone had really heard it. And it's like, work, 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 work. Work, 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 work. And then it'd be, yeah, work, 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 work. Now on paper it looked absolutely ridiculous, and they were mocking the song, obviously. And then seeing the video and hearing the song, it is exactly that. Her going work, work, work like a lot. But it worked. That's a good pun, wasn't it? But it really did work. And I liked it. And the chemistry between her and Drake. It just seemed to, if they're acting, that was very good acting, because they really, Rihanna. It's, I think I don't know if they've ever had a thing. It's nothing to do with me. But I do love her, though. I love Rihanna. My friend don't like her. Or my friend that used to live here. He was in London. And I think they were in a kebab shop. And all these heavies came in and removed everyone so that Rihanna could go in and get a kebab. She just come out of a nightclub or something. This is in the West End. And she was surrounded by all these heavy security. And they literally wouldn't let anyone into the kebab shop while she was in there. Even though they got no right to do that. But... and he since then he just couldn't stand her. It's like, come on, it's not her fault. I mean, she's going to be... think about it. I don't mean this in a bad way, but if you're going somewhere and you wanted to get some fish and chips and there's a queue, and you could go right to the front of the queue, you'd kind of want to, wouldn't you? I would. No, I wouldn't want heavies coming in and pushing people out and stuff. Depends how hungry I was, but I think what I would do though is like if I was in that position to get to the head of the queue, to get food first, pay for everyone else's food. You know, maybe do that as a gesture, like the Milky Bars are on me kind of situation. I'm just fantasizing about it because it's never gonna happen. Although it did happen. Oh wow. When I was in Bulgaria, we got chatting, like me and my friends that went together, we got chatting in a bar upstairs in the hotel to a lady, and she was, I think she was English, like English but could speak Romanian, Bulgarian, sorry. So we got talking to her. Well, I didn't know, they did. And she said, well, why don't you come back to downstairs? We've got a bar that all the staff go to. So all of the hotels, there's a few hotels like linked together underground. Funny enough, you could get to the different hotels. It's a bit like the hospitals in London. They've got big underground, like, that you can get between. Honestly, it's amazing what's underneath those hospitals. So they invited us to go to this club, which was got a full bar and this big old room, and it's where all the staff went after work. So they'd go there like after 11 or 12 or whatever time the bar's closed. And I thought, okay, everyone was up for that, so cool. So we went along, saw some of the members of staff, you know, that were in the restaurant or in the hotel, sort of said hello and that. We walked up to the bar and we got some drinks. And then all the seats were took. And we're just standing there. We didn't need a seat. Someone from the bar went up to some people sitting down and told them to get off the seats. So we didn't know that they'd said that to them. All we knew is someone came over to them, and I think about 6 people got up and moved to another part of the room. It's quite a big room. And I asked the lady, I said, what happened there? My friends were all sitting down, happy. And they said, we're not allowed to stand up. We're not allowed to sit down on seats if we have customers come down here. So if you're a resident in the hotel, which you are, or in any of these hotels, we have to give our seating up for you. And I said, are they okay with that? And she said, no. They don't like it, but they do it. They don't like doing it. And I thought, so what I did, I said, can you come with me? Walked over to the people that had just walked off. And I said, can you tell them that we don't care that they don't like it and stay over there? No, I didn't. I said, just to explain to them that they can come back and sit down, we'll move. They don't have to move their seats. I probably should have mentioned this to the people I was with, but for me, this was the right thing to do. You don't take someone's seat. Just like this was out of hours. No one should have been drinking. This was it wasn't even legal. No one should have been drinking alcohol or serving alcohol at that time of night. So we were all breaking the law. In fact, we'd have got in more trouble because we were foreigners. And after that, they said, no. I said, well, let me buy you a drink. So they came over to the bar. They chatted with us. So they kind of stayed with us. Some of them ended up sitting down on our seats. Some didn't. But the tension in the room went. Because everyone was looking at us as we were walking in. There was a little bit of tension. I could feel the tension a little bit. And then it kind of, they got on what they were doing. But as soon as those 6 or 7 people were asked to move from the seating, I could feel the tension. I could see that everyone was looking. Now, everyone there was people that were working in those hotels, so they all, I guess, knew each other, and were looking at us and there was only, I think, 6 of us. And I thought, no. How can you... They were drunk. The people I was with probably were a bit drunk. I might have been a bit drunk. But how can you enjoy yourself knowing that you tread on people's toes like that? So, yeah, that's why I kind of went over and said, come back, baby, come back. And I said, look, if you want to sit down, we can move for you. And I'll get you drinks. Just apologise. We don't do that. And some of the people that were looking at me that I was with, like, yeah, we don't do that, because they realised there was probably 100 people in that room that were watching. So maybe I put them a little bit on the spot. I might be making part of this up to make myself look better. I hope I am. But definitely did say to them, like, come back, we're not taking your seats. That's out of order. Don't play that game, because, this was their time. They'd finished work. They wanted to relax. And we were infringing upon their space. But at the same time, we was invited to go there by a member of staff. So, hey, what can you do? Well, that's what we did. And after that, they were cool. Everyone was so nice, because they realised that we weren't taking advantage of the situation. Yeah, what's that got to do with the Beatles, you may ask? I don't know. How should I know I don't know. I never know. I never know. Oh, when I was talking about the having that babysitting job, like, during the night and taking her to school in the morning, the reason I was mentioning that is because, well, that was one of the reasons I was going to mention that, is because when I was staying there, they had a really nice stereo system, and they had Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band album, and I used to listen to it over and over again when they weren't there. And one of the songs I really, really loved was what did I like? I can't remember now. Picture yourself on a boat on a river. Was it that one? She's leaving home. It's getting better all the time. No. Another day? Was it can I another day? Sit up, do roll ahead. No. Anyone? What's the one that's kind of broke into 2 songs? There's boat on a rose on a river with tangerine dreams and marshmallow clouds. Bing 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 bong 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 bing bong bing bong 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 bing 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 bong bing bong. Bing bong di bong bang bong back bing bong bing bong. It's getting better all the time. I don't know. Anyway, there was a song that I really liked listening to. It'd make more... Would the story be a bit more complete if I actually knew what song it was? But there's like... Sitting in a car, in a road on a river. No, it's the same thing. He's sitting in a car. It was John Lennon singing anyway. Maybe they both sung, but he was singing the next bit. The anthology. Now, 1996, the anthology. I didn't have the first two. I bought the third one on tape, and it was a double album, or was it 4? I think it was a double album. And I'd never heard, well, first of all, I'd never heard all the albums. Well, that's a lie. I had heard all the albums, but not like on purpose, if that makes any sense. Because my dad had all the albums and they'd be played. And I think my oldest brother used to have the albums as well. Although he was predominantly an Elvis Presley fan, I think he also loved the Beatles as well. Because he was born like 66. So he was alive during the Beatles kind of was still around. So he'd at least be hearing it when he was a toddler. I mean, when he was like growing up, when he was like first born. The first 3 years of his life. And picture yourself in a boat on a river. No, it's not the one. So yeah, that's a good thing about what I'm doing, because you're always going to know it's not AI. I mean, I suppose someone could do this, but doing these long form recordings, to create this on AI, first of all, it wouldn't look like this. It wouldn't sound like this. It wouldn't, you know what I mean? But it would cost an absolute fortune to do an hour and a half video recording, just an audio recording, but to put together that using voice cloning. Besides, I own my own voice, so I cloned my voice, but not for this. Just who knows? I mean, if I was to lose my voice at some point, then I might go to use AI, but everyone would know I was doing AI. But I would write the stuff myself and then put it into an audio as a podcast audio. So it'd still be me, but I don't do that. Hopefully I won't ever have to. But I think there's going to come a time when people will, and probably not a long away either, where people start to appreciate humans with all our flaws. Watching someone that coughs and sneezes and stutters and has gaps between the words or between the sentences and doesn't look perfect and makes mistakes. You know, this kind of thing is, it's going to be, I think with videos and stuff and podcasts, it might come to the point where everything is almost perfect. You know, every word's pronounced correctly. Although with AI, it's hard to get it to pronounce words correctly at the moment. But I mean, if you listen to the YouTube videos, it's amazing how some of the words are pronounced. You know, that's one way you can know for sure that it was an AI overdub or AI voiceover. So voiceovers will be gone soon. Humans doing voiceovers. I don't know if hardly anybody uses voiceovers on videos anymore. Like a real voice. I think a lot of it's just cloned voices, or you can use standard voices and choose from one and put in your script. And it might be a 5-minute video, 10-minute video, and it's done for you. Quite quick, easy. And it might sound quite good because it's improving all the time. But I'm kind of the antidote to that. Not that an antidote's needed, and a lot of people are going to love that. They're going to be happy, and they'll be happy with the fakeness of it, and just not want. I mean, a lot of people aren't going to want to listen to someone talking slowly or waffling on, which is kind of what I do. There's a reason for what I do, and there's a point to it. But not everybody's. They might think, oh, I just rather listen to an AI, and people will start getting used to the AIs. But then there's going to be some people who think, you know what? I want to watch a human. I want to watch a living being. Plus, you get to watch me get old. See? You get to watch me get old and older and older, and eventually become like a fossil. That's the benefit. See? I mean, if you go onto YouTube, there's videos of me from 2007. Seriously, I had hair, dark, curly hair, and a beard, not one bit of grey. And oh, I miss those days. I do and I don't, because back then things weren't great. Some things were good, some things weren't. I suppose like always, but it is nice to have my own bathroom, my own toilet, my own kitchen, my own living room, my own bedroom, my own little dog, my own TV, you know, my own sofa, my desk. I've got the equipment I need to make these recordings. See, this is kind of, it's not quite the setup that I was hoping for back, 20 years ago. But in other ways, it's probably much more than I expected. Because, to be honest, when I started doing this in 2006, I probably did not expect to be still doing it 20 years later. That is probably a little bit of a surprise to me. I say probably, I should know really, shouldn't I? Or it would be a surprise to me if I could go back and talk to that version of myself in 2006 and say, you realise I'm still doing this in 20 years. And when I came back, I would be a lot more successful, because if that version of me in 2006 knew that I would still be doing this in 20 years, then there's certain things I would have done differently, and would have had a bit more confidence, and I wouldn't have deleted things, because I had a YouTube channel that was starting to become successful in my world anyway, and I was getting more and more subscribers every day, more and more. I was getting more video views. It was starting to grow, and then I deleted the YouTube channel, which wasn't ideal. I had a blip, and I deleted it. I think 2013, I think. And I started this one, I think about 7 years ago, this YouTube channel. And I put no effort into it, really, until recently. I go through little periods, and I got like 1,000, is it 1,600 subscribers? Something like that, I can't remember. Was it 1,300? 1,000, it's something, it's over 1,000. I think it's 1,600. It'd be nice if on the YouTube channel I've got now, it'd be nice if I could get like 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Just it would just be nice, you know. It'd be a nice little tickle, little, you know. It's like, ooh, you know what I mean. And then the next target will be 100,000. Then I guess 500,000, then 1 million. That would be quite cool. I don't know how it would happen, because predominantly I've been audio based for the last 15 years. Well, not 15 years. So, 11 years, 10, 11 years, mainly just podcasts. Although I had my YouTube channel that I started, and occasionally I make videos, but now I seem to have kind of got back into the making videos again. So it is, yeah. I'm not sure, did I buy I listened, yeah, I never got to listen to the first 2 anthology albums of the Beatles, because I loved the third one so much. And I just loved it. I don't know what it was. And swapping it over with Oasis, I listened to the both of them kind of back to back on my journey to work when I was a security guard. And it was kind of, yeah, it was nice. And I'd listen to them while I was working as well, because I was there all night as a security guard. And if only the internet had been around back then. Oh my gosh, life would have been easier. I could have done so much with my time instead of, well, I found reading difficult because of reading during the night. I used to get tired eyes. But I think if I was actually doing something, like talking, working on a website or something like that, I could have kept myself actively busy, you know, kept my brain like functioning. But you know, if I was to read a book now, because I didn't have any glasses, I don't think, back then. If I was to read read a book now, I'd get tired reading it. And I do need to get some new glasses, or at least get an eye test. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. Oh. Other things about the Beatles. I mean, there's been quite a few songs, haven't there, come out over the years, that sort of been in the vaults. Was there one like Blackbird or something? Not Blackbird, but it was about a bird. Bluebird. Bluebird. La 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 la. And I'm pretty much sure that, I mean, they were releasing new songs in the 90s from the Beatles, weren't they? It's getting better all the time. Nope. I think it would have been really interesting to have been around in those days, when the Beatles were first around, you know, but that would make me a lot older, so, you know, but just to have, I don't know, to experience it, just to feel what it really felt like, because not only were they hugely famous, but they were also controversial, as was Elvis Presley when he came out. He was loved, but he was also kind of hated as well by groups of people. So it'd be interesting to see, just to kind of experience that, because I've experienced certain crazes over the years. Probably one of the major ones, I mean, is Wham, the boy band, and Take That was huge, but Wham was like massive. But one of the biggest bands, the biggest, and they weren't around for a long time, was Bros. And this is like 1988. Bros was, they just huge, like absolutely the most famous, not worldwide, but in this country, the most famous band in the country, almost like instantly. And they were only like, I think 19 at the time. And then I think they had a couple of albums, and then that was the bubble burst. See, what they didn't do, which is what people do now, bands do now, is they let people buy tickets for months and months and months and months and months in advance. They sold out Wembley on more than one occasion really quickly. I mean, they were sort of doing stadiums straight away because they were so famous. But no one seemed to plan ahead. See, if they'd have filled out stadiums at the height of their career, if they said, okay, we're going to do another tour next year in January, and maybe they just finished their tour in July, we're going to do another one in January, February. We're going to do one at Wembley, and we're going to do a whole country from January all the way through to, like, I don't know, October, around the country. And then people would buy the tickets, and they'd be looking forward to going to see Bros, their favourite band, and then they'd be invested, not just to buy their next album, to support their band, and they're going to love the songs because they love the band so much, and that expectation of it being brilliant is enough for them to enjoy it. Sometimes I'd be like, yeah, the likelihood of them loving the new album is much higher when the expectation's there. But also the investment of going into the concert and booking it so far ahead of time means that they kind of have to go out and buy their records. It's like a psychological thing, isn't it? And that technique's used now with bands, where you can book a band long way in advance. I mean, some West End shows, I think they have years of bookings. You have to wait years to watch a show. So, which means you're not going to run out. Anyone that's willing to wait a year to watch a show is pretty much going to turn up. And if in the meantime, if decides to release a song from the show, that person waiting for that show is pretty much guaranteed to buy or purchase that song. It's just from a psychological perspective, I guess. I mean, the Beatles, I don't think they even owned the rights to their own songs. I think Apple, didn't they sell to Sony, so that every time the Beatles sing, they have to give a certain amount of money to Sony Records or something? Which is weird. How can you buy the rights to a song that you've written? How can someone else buy the rights to a song that you've written? Makes no sense to me. There's probably a bit more to it than just what I said. Maybe it was John Lennon is the Lennon-McCartney partnership. Maybe some of them half the money or whatever, if it's a 50 split, of the writing royalties would go to John Lennon's family, which is Yoko Ono, isn't it? And then to Paul McCartney. But I think Michael Jackson bought the rights to the back catalogue of the Beatles. So, and I guess he must have sold it on to Sony, maybe. That was always weird, though. Apparently, like, Michael Jackson was in huge amounts of debt until he left. And he was not in debt anymore. I mean, like, because the amount of money he was making from record sales. It's just weird, isn't it, really, the way it works? I mean, Mike Tyson, you know, these people say, oh, Mike Tyson, what's he doing getting into the ring at 59 years old, and apart from the fact that he's earning like 20 million or whatever to do it. Why did he get in the ring with Roy Jones a few years ago? Why does he do the things he's doing? Well, Mike Tyson, even though he earned huge amounts of money when he was a world champion, and also, you know, when he was boxing, basically, he always would have been one of the highest paid boxers, even when he wasn't world champion, because he was a big draw. Big to draw as well. If you had a piece of paper, you'd have a big piece of paper. And he basically lost everything. He got bankrupt and stuff, and he lost all his money. But he didn't just lose his money, he owed money that he was never going to be able to pay back. So when he worked or did anything, got paid, he could only keep a certain amount, and he had to give the rest to the tax man or tax person. And then he did some other stuff which eventually meant that he was ahead, and he had opportunities and he took them. Vinny's snoring. Can you hear him? That's Vinny. Having a proper snore. He's listening now. Guaranteed when I say the last bit that I normally say when I finish this recording, he'll pop up. Sometimes he has the old dreams, you know. They'll start going. What was I talking about? The Beatles. So yeah, the Beatles. I would say, yeah, my favourite album is Sgt. Pepper. They're all good albums, but there's some songs that I can't say that I enjoyed. I mean, if you listen to their greatest hits, it's huge. It's such a huge amount of songs. But then, I don't know, by focusing on some of the other songs, they weren't the same level. They didn't seem up to the same standard as the hits, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just had to have a little cough there, and some water. It gets a little stuffy in here because I've got all these lights on, the door's closed and the window's closed. I normally have the window open, so it gets a little bit like, oh. And it's not like a tiny room or anything, and his hair is kind of, you know, sometimes his hair's loose Not my hair, his hair, Vinny. So, you know, because it'll lie on me and his hair comes out because he's ginger, and it's not why his hair comes out because he's ginger, but it's in the air, isn't it? You know, the little tiny hairs and stuff. The hair is in the air. Yeah. So, what was I going to say? I can't think of anything else regarding the Beatles. I just loved them. Oh yeah, I remember when I was in junior school, I applied to join the school choir, and the lady, the music teacher, said, "Yeah, what do you want?" I said, she might not have said it like that, but said, "I was wondering if I can join the school choir, please, miss." And she said, "Yeah, you can, but can you come and see me later on? Because right now I'm trying to do a poo." So, and she said, "Can you get out of the toilet?" So apparently that wasn't convenient time for her. And when I was looking up, under the door, but anyway, so I went and saw her during a lunch break, and she said, "I'm trying to eat my sandwiches. Can you get out of the staff room?" Okay. I said, wait a minute. When's a good time? She said, "Well, you can come after school if you want. We can come, So I went and saw her after school and sat at the table and just said to her, like, can I not volunteer? What's the right? Rehearse, not rehearse. Audition. Can I do audition now? And she said, "No." "No, I'm at home eating a dinner with my family. How did you get in my house?" No, she didn't. She said, yeah, okay, so good. Because there was a piano in the hall, I guess the assembly hall. There was a stage. It was a really nice school that I went to, this little school. And the infant school, junior school. I went to 3 different junior schools in this town, and this was the best one, I think. And I was there for 2 years, from 9 to 11, or 9 and 10. And I sung Michelle. I think she played the music. And she said, "What do you want to sing?" I said, "Behind the Green Door" by Shakin' Stevens. And she said, "No, that's not really a choiry song, is it?" I said, "But I can do the dance." She said, no, we don't need you to do the dance." I said, "Well, you haven't seen me do the dance." She said, "Well, okay, what dance is that?" And so I said, "Well, you need to turn around to see it, because, otherwise you won't be able to see me. Unless you've got eyes in the back of your head." And I realised at that point that she actually was turned around. She just had a really hairy face. But anyway, no. And I said, "Okay, you sure you want me to see my dance?" She said, "Yeah." So this is my Shakin' Stevens dance. And I can't really show you on here, but I'm singing, "You don't know what you do behind the green door." And then I dropped down to my knees. I screamed, and I jumped up again. "The green door." And it was more like, "The green door." Ah! And then back up again. "The green door." And she said, "Doesn't that hurt your knees?" I said, "Yeah." "Why are you doing it if it hurts your knees?" I said, "It's all part of the art. It's I just think it's important to me for me to get into the role. I'm a method actor, you see. She said, but you're just auditioning for a choir in a junior school. Firstly, you don't need to drop down to your knees. Generally, it's not a Catholic school. And secondly, you don't have to dance. You know, it's not like we're not dancing around. This is not that kind of choir. You know, although those choirs are good, if I was going to go to church, that's the kind of church I want to go to. I want to go to church, you know, with those people in a choir, like singing, like soul. Oh man, that's like Whitney Houston kind of singing. That's what I want to see. You might be thinking, which one of us are talking to this? This is just me, not me back then or the teacher. That's an aside. And she said, no, I don't need you to drop down to your knees. Besides, you're going to feel it when you get older. And I said, I feel it now, mate. It hurts. And she laughed. And called an ambulance. So she said, what song do you want to sing then? I said, Got Behind the Green Door. She said, no, we've been through that. You're 10 years old now. You should be able to focus on the conversation. I said, all right. Think about it now. What would you like to sing? I said, well, what about a Beatles song? She said, okay. It can't be a fast song. You know, it has to be a kind of slow melody, a love song or something like that. I said, okay. She said, what have you chosen? I said, Behind the Green Door. She said, it's not a Beatles song, is it? I said, they might have sung it, but they didn't sing it. So how do you know they didn't sing it? Because they didn't. But it was Valentine, or whatever his name is, that sung that to start with, Frankie Vaughan or something like that. And he sung it in the 60s, so maybe the Beatles, because they did copy other artists, and they didn't sing their original songs to start with. They were singing other songs. And even Elvis songs, I think, some of the rock and roll stuff. So, they weren't original when they first started out. And the teacher said, look, I need to go home soon. What is it you want to do? What do you want to sing? Or should we just put this off to another year? I said, no, I'll do it. Can I have another look through the book? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, there you go. Because she had this book of songs that she could play. I'm not saying they're the only songs that she could play, but she wanted me to sing something that's quite simple. I'll just let you know that anyone who thinks that foam's coming out of my wall, it's not. It's just a back into soundproof. Like I wouldn't notice it. Thanks for that, though. Can you imagine turning around like, what's all this stuff coming out of my wall? No. I'm going to be covering the wall up soon. So you won't never know it's there. You'll be thinking, I wonder how big his room is. It might go on for inches. It might go on for 3 inches, and we all know that's a long space. So my teacher said, so what do you want to sing then? After me looking at the book for another 10 minutes. I said, Behind the Green Door. And she looked at me and I said, no, I'm joking. I said, okay. So what do you want? I said, can I do a Christmas song? I suppose you could do a Christmas song. There's lots of hymns and stuff that carols and choirs sing. I said, okay. So I'd like to do Here It Is, Merry Christmas, Everybody's Having Fun, Look to the Future, that one where everyone screams, it's Christmas. And she said, no, because that's not a gentle song. What about the Spaceman? She said, what? Spaceman? She said, what do you mean, Spaceman? I never wanted you to go into Spaceman. I said, no, not that one. That's not released until, I think, the 90s. She said, oh, okay. I said, no, it's Christy Berg. She said, what? Lady in Red? I said, no, not Lady in Red. Yeah, him, but not that song. It's a Spaceman. It's a Christmas song that I've only heard recently, which I quite liked. Didn't even know it was Christy Berg. I think it was from the 70s. She said, no. I said, why not? She said, I've never heard of it. I said, well, it's in this book. Can't you play every song that's in this book? She said, I can't play every song in the world. Besides, it's not in that book. I said, it is. She said, where is it? I said, well, it's there. And she said, where? I said, it's there. She said, where? I said, she opened the page, show me. And I pointed. I said, it's there. She said, no. That's not the song. That's Silent Night. Why are you saying this? It was not there at all. I said, no, I lied. I don't know why. Sometimes I like to tell fibs. She said, why? I said, I don't know. I mean, do you know when I said I wanted to audition for the choir? She said, yeah. I said, I didn't really mean it. Why? She said, I thought maybe spending some time with you and I'd absorb your power to play the piano. Because we've got a piano at home, you see. My stepmom plays it, and I thought it'd be really good if after Sunday lunch I just jumped out of my chair and said, listen to this, everyone, and started playing Behind the Green Door on the piano. Something like that. And she said, what? I said, oh, it doesn't matter. How about, she said, how about a Beatles song, but like a ballad? I said, all right. And she was waiting for me. Like I just stood there. And she said, have you got one? I said, yeah, okay. She said, well, point to me in a book, which it is. I said, there you go. She said, that's Silent Night. I said, I don't know where it is. Which one are you looking for? I don't know. She said, well, shall I choose it for you? I said, yeah, all right then. So she said, let's do Michelle. Very, very quick in making her mind up. Up. First you gotta turn it on, then you gotta turn it around. So that's another thing. We were the Eurovision Song Contest winners, England, back in, was it 82 or 81, with Bucks Fizz. But they did also go on to sing The Land of Make Believe. Oh, look around. Nice to see Superman. The Land of Make Believe. I mean, in a way, I prefer that song, but Making Your Mind Up was so much fun, energetic, and we won. Although I do think Lulu won it in the 60s, didn't she? Like with Shout, didn't she? Did she win the Eurovision back in the 60s? I don't know. I wasn't around back then. So my teacher says, why don't you do Michelle by the Beatles? I said, that's Paul McCartney does that one. She said, yeah, it's the Beatles. I said, no, it's Paul McCartney. She said, yeah, but it's the Beatles. I said, no, it's Paul McCartney. He's the one that sings it. She said, I know he's the one that sings it, but it's still the Beatles. It's a Beatles song. So how can it be a Beatles song if Paul McCartney's the one that sings it? She couldn't answer that. She said, well, yeah, John Lennon and Paul McCartney write songs together. I said, okay, did they write that song together? Or did Paul McCartney write that song? The same as he did with Hey Jude. And she really backed her into a corner because she didn't realise I was so knowledgeable about... What was I knowledgeable about? Oh yeah, Paul McCartney. I think it must have been an interesting life for Paul McCartney. Just in a sense to be so famous so quickly and so internationally famous and so rich and so talented. It must have been, but bearing in mind where he was from a working class background. He had zero preparation really for what was about to come. It must have been such a huge shock when it did happen. For all of them, all four of them. And they dealt with it quite well, didn't they? And my teacher said, look, it's nice to hear all about the biography of the Beatles, but can you sing the song, please? So I said, okay. I sang the song, and she said, right, you're in, providing you don't ever talk again. I said, okay. So yeah, I was in the what's it, the choir. It was all right, I suppose. I wouldn't say it was life-changing, but it was definitely, it was a thing. You know, it's quite late in my career as a junior school person, because I'd go into high school, you know, in a few months' time, but it was quite nice. I did apply I auditioned for some roles in the school plays in high school, but I never got in any. I don't think they realised just how... I don't know, I think I could have been quite a good actor. Maybe not, I don't know. But for me, because I used to do drama as a subject for the last 2 years of school, or 3 years, 2 years, and for me it was just a skive. It was the last 2 episodes on a Friday, and maybe a couple of episodes, last 2 classes on a Friday, and maybe a couple of classes in the week as well. And it was just fun. I didn't take it seriously. I just, yeah, you know what I mean? It's a shame. As I think back to the past, usually it's hard to think back to the future. If I think back to the past, I do sometimes wish that I'd gone down the road of doing extra work, because I did do an extra job when I was, this is in 1997, probably about October time, and I had 2 jobs at the same time. So I was an extra in this movie that was Billy Connolly was in. He was starring in it, and I don't know if Bob Hoskins was in it, I don't know, but they were just filming, I think, for the day. That was it. It was a bar scene, that's all it was. And loads of people, can't believe how many people were in there. The cameras were literally in their face, so close to their faces. And so I was queuing up, and I was in a movie. Forgot about that. So I was an extra, but also I was looking after the bar as well and the club for my friend who owned the club, making sure that no one took stuff. So I was getting paid twice. I mean, the extra work it's like 10 quid or something, and probably the same for doing that, but it was still, I've never been paid twice for doing the same job before. And had to be, and also because they were doing it on a day where we were open in the evening, the club was going to be open in the evening, I had to make sure that they were out and everything was gone by like 6 o'clock. So it's good, I could start shouting. I didn't shout, but like, can everyone get out? Oi, Connolly, get out now. Oi, Big Yin, get out. No. I wonder who is in it with him. I don't ever remember the film being released, but I did meet, it's ironic, well, not ironic, it's a story, but I met this lady at the time and kind of fell for her. And she was a comedian as well, so I used to go and see her gigs for a little bit, and we'd talk on the phone, and I got her a little job in the club doing some admin stuff, and we kind of lost touch because there was no, I don't know why, to be honest. And then she came into the club one night, and I was so excited to see her, and I was looking forward to having a chat with her, but then didn't get a chance to, and she had to go out early, had some kind of emergency to go out, and never saw her again. And weirdly enough, I don't know, weird, I kind of came over her on Facebook, sorry. I might have been looking up her name, just as comedians. I was like, I wonder if she's still doing comedy and whatever. And this video came up, and it was of a hypnotist, a female hypnotist, doing stage hypnosis and doing that stuff. And she looked, actually I could tell from the way she was talking that it was her, got the same voice. And I caught up with her on Facebook, just said hi, but she didn't remember me. Didn't remember me at all. And I felt a little bit sad, especially as she's kind of gone into the hypnosis and gone into that world that I've been in, well, I'm still in, I guess, and just I don't know, didn't recall me at all. This felt sad. This is a few years back. Oh well. I'm clearly not that memorable, am I? So, I am going to go. So thank you for listening. Remember to be kind to yourself, because you do deserve to be happy. And be gentle with yourself. You deserve to feel safe. And also remember that you are already enough. Already enough. And you're going to be okay. Lots of love. Bye.